Welcome back, everyone. I am so stirred by this idea of rebuilding, of being front-footed in 2021, not being passive, not being fragile, not falling back on the known, hanging on for dear life to the traditional and the historical, but leaning forward on tippy toes, being prophetically curious with what God can do. Now, this little session, I want to talk a little around the leaders that Nehemiah drew together that enabled him to do what God had called him to do. The walls were broken down, as we know, the walls of Jerusalem, and the gates were burnt. The gates were burnt is both an exegetically accurate rendition of what happened at that point in time, but it's also a metaphor for the picture of leadership. Leadership is under severe scrutiny. I was thinking this morning, as I spoke with a couple from the Middle East, I'm probably in around 6 or 7 transitionary conversations with those who had been leading churches, who are leaving or have left, and a new person or person stepping into that space. It's a very, very interesting time. Is the pandemic a moment where we're online, where leaders are saying, you know what, it really makes no difference if I tap out or move on, or whatever the case may be. So let's read a passage and then I'm going to comment into those spaces. It's Nehemiah chapter 2, and he says, the officials did not know where I'd gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had nothing to say to the Jews, the priests, the nobles, or the officials, or any others who would be doing the work. I do think, dear friends, the gift of the pandemic is to afford us the opportunity to revisit what leadership needs to look like in the hour in which we live. We know that the millennials as a generation are exiting the church. In the US, about 1 million a year from those who are homeschooled, who went to Christian colleges, who are tapping out. That's the statistic that I read recently. Other parts of the world, it's evident, but maybe not as measured. But we are finding a generation and the generation after that who are tapping out and saying, nope, I'm done. This is not what I want as my spiritual adventure. So it's an ardent time. It's an urgent time for us to re-examine the conversation around leadership and to say, what should it look like in this time? What kind of Nehemiah leader do we need at this time? In my devotional reading this morning, I was wrapping up Malachi, which is one of the minor prophets I've been going through. And in the 3rd chapter of Malachi, it begins with this notion of preparing a way for the Lord. It's that prophetic anticipation. Surely God is coming. And you know, dear friends, I keep hearing that prophetically. I keep hearing, prepare a way for the Lord, prepare a way for the Lord. Now, I'm not a revivalist from the point of view that the revival cures all ills. But I do believe that God periodically sends revivals or visitations or reformations, call it what you will, to come and reboot the church, reconfigurate the church, raise up a fresh set of men and women to lead the church, and recruit her voice in a fresh way at a particular time. I'm thinking of John Wesley, one of my heroes in the faith, with the Industrial Revolution, when everything seemed to be going pear-shaped and the French Revolution would be matched by a British Revolution. God sent Wesley and Whitefield, and it was a time of incredible cultural and social revamping. So what kind of leaders do we need? Well, from Nehemiah, as I said in the earlier session, we see this man being played out of position. I think some of you are going to be surprised at what the next few years will look like for you. This is what you thought you were doing. This is what God is going to do with you. I'm a school teacher by training, but I've been a church planter and a church leader for many years. Could that be you? Could it be that God calls you to a bivocational journey? I think in the last of the last days, that will happen more and more. A bit like Paul, who had this business going on the side, which is full of excitement and full of adventure. But then I wrote some other things down, so I'm going to glance down at my notes if you don't mind. I think not only was Paul the sommelier who becomes a builder, he was bivocational, dealt with the king's wine, and yet built Jerusalem. But I think it's a robust and gutsy leadership that God requires of us at this time. In the last session, I'll talk a little bit about the fight back that they got from Sanballat and crew. And I think it's a robust. I don't think it's people who play within themselves. I don't think it's those who simply reluctantly want to step into a position of leading God's people on adventure. It's creative and agile. It's being able to spin on a dime. We had so much fun on Sunday. We were told by the weather forecast was that there would be rain at 6 o'clock. And we thought, well, that's fine. We normally finish our parking lot church at 5:15. Oh, my word, I get up to teach. I start reading the text. One cloud comes over and dumps on us. I mean, it was catastrophic chaos. Meryl was telling me from her vista, I mean, we just bought new sound gear. People were running, trying to cover the sound gear, guitars and drums. It was chaos. And I was standing there thinking, what on earth do I need to do now? I could just send everyone home. And I thought, no, let's do Church Africa style. And that's what we did. We got the gear out. I walked amongst the people. We were talking about worship and dancing. And Tyler got his guitar and stood in the middle of the people, no sound, unplugged, a beautiful moment, because you know what? One cloud was not going to discourage us from the moment. And it was a moment we will all remember. We were like drowned rats. We were wet. It was cold. We were all ready to go home. But with lifted arms and lifted hearts, we sang to the Lord. It was a glorious moment, forever branded on our minds. I think furthermore, it's a leadership that is not risk averse. We have optimistic faith. Man, is that needed at this time. I think Father God loves our enthusiasm. The zeal of the Lord is what the text speaks about. It's passion and fervor, and we can do this. God can do this, and I think that will catalyze many courageous steps going forward. Lovers of the sacred text, we will not give up the scriptures. We will not resort to an alternative source to our spirituality. This Bible, Ezra preached it, we will preach it, whatever else we do. We're not loners, but we are collaborators. We want to do it together. I started off by speaking about Nehemiah as a builder, and I do want to encourage you, don't be out there on your own. Don't, as a church or as a leadership team, try and hang in there by the hair of your chinny chin chin. God has given us gifts, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, to partner, to walk alongside, to empower, to help. Remember the 3 E's that we speak of. The Ephesians 4 gifts are there to empower, to equip, and to enlarge. They strengthen the church to the great global godly adventures, taking this gospel to the 4 corners of the globe. That's the kind of leadership we need. Not huddling together in self-preservation, but open-handed in our expectation and enthusiasm. What can Jesus do with us into the nations at this time? God bless you. Thanks for listening to me. See you in a few.